Welcome to the Nationalism of Italy note set. Before you go any further, please look up what nationalism is and answer that on the top of your notes. Okay, in our last bit of notes, we learned what the Congress of Vienna did. So, what do you remember from what the Congress of Vienna did? Overall, the Congress of Vienna redrew the map of what Europe looked like. It redistributed all these different countries and split up different nations into kind of little sub-nations. So people that maybe spoke the same language, they got split up. So since today we're talking about Italian nationalism, in terms of what did the Congress of Vienna do for Italian nationalism, it cut up Italy into all these different little regions. Each little region, each state had its own government, but they all shared the same language, which really was trying to pull all those Italians together. Bummer about the Congress of Vienna is that the Congress of Vienna ignored national groups. It ignored national groups and it placed these groups under the control of large empires, like I was just saying in the last slide. So if I spoke Italian and you spoke Italian also, but you were in the next state over, the Congress of Vienna really ignored that, and it didn't care that both you and I spoke the same language and really were more similar than we were different. So Italy got split up into three basic groups, which you can see here on the map on your screen. The north became Austrian ruled. Some states became ruled by a family called the Habsburgs, which were a very famous Austrian family, and some other groups became French. Italian nationalism grew no matter what. It grew in opposition of these conditions of being split up and being owned by or being run by different families and countries. Giuseppe Mazzini is known as the heart of Italian nationalism, and I'll explain why in a minute. Italian artists, writers, and thinkers were forming secret societies to advocate the overthrowing of the Austrian government in Italy. So what that means is that people didn't like that the Austrian government was running a large part of Italy. Like I just said in the last slide, both Italy and the Habsburgs, both Austria and the Habsburgs, which are both Austrian in origin, they had the upper hand in ruling most of Italy. Italians didn't like that. They wanted to rule their own country on their own, and they wanted to bring each other together. For those of them that all spoke Italian, so Giuseppe Mazzini. Well, he's here. Hang on. Okay, so the writer Giuseppe Mazzini, he was exiled at a certain point in his life. However, when he was gone, he was writing these pamphlets to support Italian nationalism. These pamphlets were like propaganda for the nationalism movement. These pamphlets were not allowed in Italy, obviously, because the Habsburgs and Austrians would have never allowed such things. But his pamphlets did end up making it in. They were smuggled. And what his pamphlets were saying was that the Congress of Vienna, they simply needed to redraw the lines in Europe, because Mazzini said that Italy was improperly redistributed when the Congress of Vienna came in and kind of sliced and diced everyone up. So again, Mazzini is known as the heart of Italian nationalism because he was the one who kind of started this movement, saying, hey, we shouldn't be run by Austrians. We should be able to run ourselves. These writing of the pamphlets helps to spread awareness for the cause to fight for the path toward unity in Italy. Uprisings and revolutions. Partially due to Mazzini's writings, those pamphlets we were just talking about, nationalist-inspired revolutions spread throughout Europe in 1848. One such revolt had taken over Rome, and had the revolutionaries in that case, they ended up running the republic for a short time, but that was only temporary. And then the Pope regained control of Rome again. But it was because of these pamphlets that these nationalists were rising up and deciding to fight for what they really believed in. There is another key player in Italian nationalism named Camillo di Cavour. I am certain I'm pronouncing that wrong. He's known as the brain of Italian nationalism. So the failures of the revolutionaries to take over fully in that last slide, it did not weaken the nationalist movement. Nationalists were still more eager than ever to take over, even if their little revolution that they just had done didn't quite go over the way that they wanted it to. So this guy, the brain, Camillo, he emerged as a leader at this time to unite Italy. Obviously, if he's known as the brain, he is quite a smart man, and he was a great thinker and helped the nationalists to break through. Cavour founded a nationalist newspaper called Il Risorgimento, which is known as rather Resurgence or Rebirth. So we can think of this newspaper that he created as another piece of propaganda for the Italian nationalist movement. This also became the name, this Il Risorgimento. It became the name for Italian unification and freedom for Austrian control. So not only is that the name of the newspaper on the bottom right there, it's also the name of what Italian unification went by. Our next key player is Giuseppe, another Giuseppe, Garibaldi. He's known as the sword, so we can infer that he is going to be the fighter. Our other Giuseppe was the heart, so he was the person that really felt the urge to start this nationalist movement. And then Camillo, he was the brain. So back to Giuseppe. Giuseppe Garibaldi is known as the sword. He joined the movement in 1833. And he had to flee Italy twice to South America. So when he fled to South America, he learned about a typical type of warfare that was done in South America called guerrilla warfare. It's Guerilla, guerrilla warfare, Guerilla. This guerrilla warfare that he learned in South America was kind of like a really wild, rebellious kind of warfare, and it really helped him to fight better when he came back to Italy, because this is not a thing that typical Europeans, they don't fight like this. Cavour, the brain, he asked Garibaldi and his followers, which were called the Red Shirts, due to that fancy uniform on the bottom right. Cavour asked Garibaldi and his followers to lead part of the army to fight the war against the Austrian government. To fight the war against the Austrian government. So now we've got the brain, who is involving the sword. They're working together to try and now fight the Austrian government to get rid of them. After a few months of fighting, Garibaldi succeeded in taking part of Italy. He succeeded. Slowly, he won other territories as well. This was a wonderful thing for the nationalists to have now won, like permanently won a little territory that they are now running, and Austria isn't running it anymore. So good for the Italians. So now Italy is starting to, the nationalists are starting to win. More and more fights are starting to get rid of the Austrian influences and the Habsburg influences that were previously running their country for them. And so seemingly everything's going well. However, when Italy started to join up the different territories, there was some social and economic problems that came along with that. So, although Italy was politically unified, meaning they're winning all those battles, right, with the brain and the sword, and they're helping to unify all of Italy. That's just politically speaking. So, although Italy was politically unified, regional differences led to a lack of unity among Italians. So what that means is that each region still was different. Although they all spoke Italian, they farmed differently, they worked differently, they did different things. It was hard. So Italians didn't feel as if they all were one group of people. Not yet. Southern Italy was resentful that they were being governed by Rome. So southern Italy is upset. The Catholic Church did not recognize Italy as a legitimate nation, even though the Catholic Church was, yes, run basically out of Italy, but that was out of the Vatican City. It's a little bit different. Anyway, so the Catholic Church didn't recognize Italy as a legitimate nation, so the Catholics couldn't vote. Those are just two examples of many of those regional differences which led to the lack of unity. Widespread poverty was a huge issue in Italy, unfortunately, as well. That led to unemployment and rising taxes, which led a large number of Italians to immigrate, with an E, immigrate to the Americas. Immigrate with an E means to leave your country to go somewhere else. Immigrate with an I means to arrive someplace else. So, all that unemployment and all those taxes that were going up, it led a lot of Italians to leave and to get out of Italy and come to the Americas, which we know, this is a little bit after the time of the Industrial Revolution. So we know about this. We know that a lot of different Europeans came over to the Americas during this time frame because there's a lot of job opportunities here, and Italians felt that as well. About 4.5 million Italians immigrated to the Americas by 1920. 4.5 million Italians. So all of that fighting within Italy as a whole, it made a new foreign policy sort of come up within Italy. So in 1882, Italy formed a military alliance with Austria-Hungary and Germany to defend each other against any possible attacks. So, digesting that, Italy decided to join together with these two nations. One of them is part of Austria, who had just, run their country, to say, listen, let's promise that you're not going to pull that stunt again, and we're going to do our own thing. So let's be buddies. Let's have an alliance, so that if anyone comes to fight you, Germany, or you, Austria-Hungary, us Italians, we got your back. We're going to help you out. So that kind of was the Italian way of having these nations not come back into their business anymore. This was known as the Triple Alliance. The Triple Alliance. The Triple Alliance is going to be an important factor that comes up in World War I. And this is kind of the beginning of countries we see that are having a truce with each other. And I don't want to say it started with the Triple Alliance with Austria-Hungary, Germany, and Italy, but they definitely were key players at the beginning of the time of having alliances. All right, click the link here that I've provided to watch a really short video about Italian unification. So it sort of summarizes what I just talked about in the last couple of slides, and it also gives you more animations so you can see the different countries that had footholds in Italy and how things got redistributed and all that stuff. So it's a short video. It's only about 3 minutes long. Please answer the questions as you go, but be sure that you read the questions first so you know what you're listening for and then watch the video. Good luck.